One of the core services that we offer at Norton, Crumlin and Associates revolves around a somewhat mythical subject called facilitation. And what we wanted to spend a little bit of time on today was to try and unpack exactly what that is and perhaps what it isn't, for the benefit of you as leaders who may find yourselves in a situation where you have to conduct a facilitation, or indeed you're looking to hire someone to perhaps help you with it. The good news is I'm lucky enough to have a business partner who is, in my view, one of the finest facilitators in the market, and therefore makes a lot of sense for me to have a discussion with Roger Norton about what it means to be a facilitator. Roger, facilitation. First up, tell me what it actually is.
Jack, that's a great question. And I've been thinking about that. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and it's a passion of mine, real passion. I love working with groups of people. So for me, Jack, it's about how do we create an environment that is productive and positive for a group of people to focus on an issue, business issue, and come to something that's meaningful for them. And at the end of the day, walk out going, that was really good. We couldn't have got there if we hadn't been through that particular activity. So that for me is facilitation. It's not, master of ceremonies, and you and I do that in other contexts. It's not chairing a meeting with a really structured agenda. It's not a performance act. In fact, it's not about us as the facilitator. It's about the audience having a great time in a productive way to get to a result. So that's what it is for me.
Is there a process?
I think there is a process, Jack, and it's not a complex structure, but there's a preparatory phase, there's a delivery phase on the day, but even that has some subsets to it.
Yep.
And then there's a follow-up phase as well. So it is a well-considered activity. You don't want to be, in that moment, walking into a room for the first time, meeting people for the first time, not really sure of the dynamics of the room, and trying to start and be engaging and connecting with a topic. That for me is just not a place I want to go. So there's a preparatory phase even before you walk in the room. There's the on the day phase, and then there's a post phase.
You tell me a little bit more about what does the preparation involve?
I need to understand who's in the room, what are the dynamics. And so I do a lot of interviews with the participants in advance. I'll go one-on-one with people to understand when you're walking into that room, what's on your mind? What are the topics you think are important that we should cover? And I create a picture in my mind of all the participants in the room and try and anticipate some of the dynamics that might evolve around particular topics. If you follow that further through, the advantage, of course, is you know where the agreement is in the topics. So you don't need to go there, or except to confirm it. You can then spend more time on where the disagreements are, and you need to work through those. There's no point endlessly prosecuting where we're already in heated agreement.
Right, okay.
So for me, it's also about checking the venue. So I actually don't like to walk into a place not knowing the look and feel of the room. I want to anticipate, as people walk in, what the participant experience is going to be. You know, that walk into that room and you go, where do I fit in? What's going to happen next? That actually can be unsettling for people. So I want to have a flow that goes, this is easy, you belong here, you get comfortable here really quickly. So I spend time as part of my prep looking at the venue, sit in some of the chairs. Sounds very minor, Jack, but for me, there's sometimes a blocked view, a pillar. We've all had pillars in rooms, terrible design and so forth. I also spend time working with the venue crowd, the people who are running the show, to understand what their expectations are, to have a look at some of the AV, because you'll inevitably have the fall down in AV and all that preparation, Jack. And you could do even more than that if you had time available and the client was happy with that. It gives you options. All this preparation is about giving you options so that when you get to the day and stuff happens, and it will, you've got some alternative plan B, plan C in your mind, and you're not trapped in that frozen moment in front of a crowd of people not knowing what you might go to. And one other, Jack, that comes to mind is language. Organisations have acronyms.
Yes.
Organisations have different perspectives. And it's really important to know what language you can use and what you can't use. Right. Don't use this acronym, use another one. Explain this in full or don't use it at all. That's where the interview will give you some of those clues, and as you work with a leader. But you can lose credibility just like that if you've got the wrong language at the wrong time, as you open in that first 5 minutes and you go, wow, I've got my audience, or I haven't because I've used the wrong phrase.
Talk to me a little bit about delivery and what actually goes on in the day? What are some of the key things that you should be looking for?
So let's play a day out, Jack, as if it's a program. So I'm always there well early on the day. Inevitably, the tables will not be set in the right order.
Yep.
What you've asked for hasn't eventuated. And I don't know how many times I've moved chairs and tables in that last time before. So you need to get there early. And you sometimes have a nervous leader who now recognises the significance of that moment. And they'll go, I've been rehearsing overnight, can I check stuff with you? So you've got to get there early to do your preparation, noting that the leader will turn up and probably want to re-rehearse again just before it kicks off and before the audience walks in. And there'll always be someone early. There'll always be someone who turns up, I got the early train, I couldn't wait, I'm here early, and they want to talk to you. So again, a trick of the trade, Jack, give yourself time, get there early, get it set, and anticipate that you'll be distracted up to the last. And with that, you've got a program. So you know, and I spend a lot of time rehearsing in my mind the sequence of the opening remarks. It sets the tone for the day. So I've got some core things to cover, a little bit about me and my context and my role, and we'll come to that in a moment. We'll talk about ground rules and the conduct and the program and the time, just to set it up. So I do that preparation, Jack, get that clear and get it ready to go. And that's so at that point, lights on, we're away.
Right.
I resist the urge to change the program too much mid-flight, because then you've lost your bearings. And the risk is then people feel they can sometimes overrule or distract you, and you've lost your flow. And so it's important, with the end clearly in mind as you start, to think, no, I trust myself. I've done the work, I've got the sense of the program, stick with it. You've got to talk to your client, of course, because they'll have a view. I'd like to explore something in further detail. You can go off track a bit, but if you've got a program and a broad flow, you can stay and come back on track really quickly. Another one, there's an urgency, particularly if you're early in your facilitation career. There's a desire to fill the gap. It sort of goes silent for a moment. My advice is let silence sit in the room. There are times when it's just valuable as a tool of facilitation not to fill it, not to be the centre in a sense, and let it breathe. Let the silence settle on the room, because someone will fill the gap. And so, Jack, when it comes to involving everybody in the room, don't for a moment think that one size fits all. There's lots of different perspectives, and it would be a missed opportunity not to be sensitive to cultural differences. There are people, for example, who will not offer a robust opinion in front of their boss. Sensitive to hierarchy, so let's be realistic about that. And so I find time and ways to give them alternatives to participate in the workshop, to be sensitive to the cultural differences. I had a gentleman in a workshop 5 days and didn't utter a word in a group session, and certainly wasn't going to add anything in front of their boss. Said to me at the end of the workshop, that was a great workshop. And I'd achieved that for him because I'd given him other opportunities in small groups. He was quiet in the large group, very noisy in the small groups, where they felt comfortable amongst peers at level, and they had a structured conversation. So it's understanding the cultural differences. Not everybody's going to be robust in throwing big, bold points up for the facilitator. So again, read your room, understand some of those subtleties. And of course, Jack, back to our preparation, and we keep on going back to it. The more you do up front, yes, it's time, and if you're a buyer of facilitation, you'd be expecting a good facilitator to be saying, I need a reasonable chunk of time to prepare. If it's an international group, even more so. Don't miss it. Don't assume it's a quick job. So we get the best out of the room. That's what it's about. Yeah. In a way that's comfortable for people. And you want them to leave having had the productive, professional and positive experience that you had in mind right in the design of the day.
Final question. If you're a leader, why should you engage a facilitator? Why wouldn't you just do it yourself?
Jack, content and process. I position myself as an expert in process, facilitation process, but I'm not an expert in the content of the business that I'm in. I've learned enough, right language, got the right perspectives, but the content belongs to the audience. So for an executive, you really want to be in content. You really want to contribute to the dialogue. You really want to add some value, have the back and forth with your colleagues. If you're running process at the same time, you're trying to read body language, you're trying to work out where the afternoon tea is going to turn up, you're trying to keep an eye on technology. You can't do justice to both. You think you can, but you can't, in my view. So I would say to a chief executive, a leader, be in the content with your colleagues. They want you to be there, and let someone else drive the process.
So we hope you've actually got some useful tips and tricks arising from that. Our plan is to actually dig a little bit deeper into some of these areas that Roger's touched upon over the next period. So we'll give you some more detail that you can use. Fundamentally, we believe that it's a skill that you may need to have yourself as a leader to understand how to facilitate a discussion with your team or with a group of different stakeholders. It's certainly going to be something that you will probably have the need to engage someone to help facilitate a discussion. And hopefully, therefore, we've given you some ideas about how to get the most out of that exercise and allow you to achieve the business outcomes that you want to achieve. As always, if you've got some thoughts, some ideas, some war stories that you'd like to share, please follow the social media links at the end of the video and let us know your thoughts.